Quarter scale gravedigger part 24I. Ay, still in pieces. Here's the truck with the rear axle taken off. Let's go over here and see what's going on. So here's one of the axle halves with the new pin in it from Dave's Discount Motors. So I'm hoping that's going to last longer. And this nylon spacer here is what I used to prevent the axle from sliding out of the axle tube. That surface there, if it got pulled out, would rest against the inside of the tube there, and it would keep it from coming out. The fitting in the bearing is nice and tight, which is a good thing. I have to use a press to install it or to take it out. So I wasn't too concerned with it coming out. However, when I took that axle off and took the hub off, I could barely spin the axle by hand. I mean, it was really difficult. So then I put it on my press and just gave it a little shove, and sure enough, it freed up like it should and spun nice and easy. So what I've done now, I've made an aluminum spacer. Still have to cut the grooves to fit over the pin there. And now I have a thrust washer, thrust bearing. So if it does start to get pulled out, this will stop it, but it'll still allow it to spin. And to make room for this thrust bearing, which is about 1/4 of an inch thick, just to show you how, let me show you this real quick. So that fits in there like that. So that's where it engages and spins the cup on the differential. Okay, so to make room for that thrust bearing, I have to machine the center of the tube inside there. I have to cut that 1/4 of an inch deeper. And with a piece this big, I need to support it at both ends, but I can't support it at this end because I have to move in there. I can't use the tailstock of the lathe to support it because I have to bring the cutting tool in the center hole there. So to do that procedure, got what's called a steady rest, which has 3 fingers on it, which you slowly move in, and it makes contact with the tube, and then you tighten up those fingers, and you constantly oil it as you're machining. So obviously it's held in the 3-jaw chuck, and that allows you to get a firm hold of it so you can do the cutting you need to do. Bring it in, cut back and forth. So I've got the machining done on this axle tube. So I've got to take that apart, start putting things back together again. Assemble it, make sure it's not too tight. If it's too tight, I'm going to have to do more machining on those pieces. Let's see if I can do a shortcut over here. If it's too tight, I can machine the spacer here and shorten that. But to do that, I've got to put it on the press the axle out, take it apart, machine it down, put it back together, put it back in the press it all back together again, bolt it up. So you got to be patient when you're doing projects like this. And then if it's too loose, I've got shims here that can fill up the gaps. So that's going to take some time. And another option that I may or may not use, if I still have problems breaking pins, I've got a Vertigo locker I got from ddm.com, DaveDiscountMotors.com. So this replaces the whole differential. So I bolt up that bevel gear to this, and what I'll have to do is to drill a 1/2 inch hole through the center for this new axle here. This axle has a keyway slot in it already cut. So then I'll have to take a broach and my arbor press and cut the slots on the inside of the hole. So then the keyway will hold that in place. I don't want to use set screws to try to hold that together. So that'll eliminate any broken pins. And I like the idea of an axle like this. I know it's going to affect the steering. It's going to make it harder to steer. But if I'm running on dirt, running on gravel, running in grass, hopefully it won't be too bad. But can't wait to find out. Again, I'm going to stick with the HBI diff with the differential action. And I also wanted to say, with that long axle, if the inside wheel comes off the ground, it's not going to spin real fast, and then when it comes down, it's going to grab, and that's when it can do damage to the drivetrain parts. So with a straight axle like that, when it comes off the ground, it's still going to move the truck, and it'll keep on going instead of stopping or slowing down and coming back down. So there's pluses and minuses. So got to get to work. That's right. To be continued.